Hello and welcome. I have to be honest with you from the very start. I wasn't sure we should even have this conversation. Some stories are so personal, so raw, that putting them out into the world feels intrusive. But then I thought about the silence. And how, sometimes, silence can be more damaging than the truth. How it allows rumors to fester, lies to spread, and pain to grow in the dark. So, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about a family that many of you feel you know. We're going to talk about Matt Roloff. Now, if you're a fan of the show, you just got a picture in your head. The charismatic, stubborn, endlessly optimistic patriarch of Little People, Big World. The man with the grand visions, the twinkle in his eye, and the sheer force of will to turn a simple farm into an empire. You're thinking of the Matt Roloff who drives tractors, builds castles in the air, and sometimes on the ground, and who has faced a lifetime of physical challenges with a smirk and a plan. But that's not the Matt Roloff we're talking about tonight. The man at the center of this story is in a hospital bed. And he is very, very sick. The news broke in the way these things often do, a vague post from a family friend, a hushed comment in a local store, then a frantic flurry of messages between fans online. The official statements, when they finally came, were, "Careful. Too careful. Matt is dealing with a serious health issue and is receiving treatment." The family asks for privacy at this difficult time. It was the kind of corporate speak that sends a chill down your spine because you know the reality behind it is anything but clean and corporate. It's messy. It's frightening. It's the sound of a monitor beeping in a quiet room. And surrounding that hospital bed are two women. Two women whose lives have been inextricably, and often controversially, linked to this man. His ex-wife, Amy. And his fiancée, Karen. You've seen the dynamics play out on your screens for years. The complicated dance of a blended family, a shared business, a legacy. You've seen the laughter, the arguments, the tense negotiations over pumpkin season. But what you're seeing now, what's happening behind the closed doors of that hospital wing, is something different entirely. This isn't about the farm. This isn't about a TV show. This is about life and death. And in this high-stakes, high-pressure environment, every crack in every relationship is being forced wide open. But before we get into the heart of this story, before we talk about the tears, the fears, and the shocking confrontations that have already taken place, I need to tell you something. I need to give you the twist right now, at the beginning, because it changes everything you think you know about this situation. Ready? The cause of Matt's hospitalization wasn't an accident. It wasn't a sudden, unforeseen illness that struck out of the blue. The truth is, Matt's current critical condition is the direct result of a conscious decision he made. A decision he made weeks ago, in secret, against the explicit and desperate pleas of both Amy and Karen. He stopped his treatment. He looked his doctors in the eye, he looked at the women who love him, and he decided to walk away from the very protocol that was keeping him stable. He chose to roll the dice with his life. And the reason he did it is the key to understanding everything that is happening right now. Let that sink in. This isn't just a tragedy, it's a choice. And the fallout from that choice is tearing his world apart. So, let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning of this crisis, before the hospital, before the desperate phone calls, to a time when the biggest problem on the Roloff farm was probably a stubborn pumpkin. For years, those of us watching from the outside have known that Matt's health is a constant battle. Dwarfism comes with its own set of complex medical challenges, and Matt has faced them with a warrior spirit. But there was one issue, a persistent one related to his musculoskeletal system, that had been causing him more and more trouble. The pain was becoming a constant companion. His mobility was decreasing. The vibrant, always in motion Matt Roloff was being slowly, inexorably, grounded. His doctors presented him with an option. A new, aggressive treatment. It was invasive. It came with significant risks and a brutal recovery period. But the potential payoff was a new lease on life. Less pain, more freedom. For a man like Matt, whose entire identity is built on action and creation, It must have sounded like a miracle. But miracles have a price. Both Amy and Karen, from their very different positions in his life, were terrified. Amy, the mother of his children, the woman who stood by him through decades of health struggles, knew the toll this would take. She'd seen him at his weakest. She'd nursed him through recoveries. She knew the Matt behind the camera, the one who was frustrated, in pain, and human. Her fear was born of experience, of a long, shared history of sickness and health. Karen, his partner in this new chapter, the woman who represents his future, was equally terrified, but for different reasons. She fell in love with the vibrant, charismatic visionary. She's built a life with him based on travel, projects, and a hard-won peace after the tumult of his divorce. This treatment, this gamble, threatened to shatter that future. Her fear was for the life they had built, for the man she knew, and for the terrifying possibility of losing him just as they were about to officially start their lives together as husband and wife. Despite their fears, they rallied. They became an unlikely united front. Amy, from her home just across the farm, offered her support, her knowledge of his medical history, her help with the kids. Karen, by his side, became his primary caregiver, his advocate, his rock. For a brief, shining moment, the old tension seemed to melt away in the face of a common enemy, Matt's declining health. The treatment began. And it was every bit as hard as they feared. There were good days, where Matt would crack a joke from his hospital bed, talking about new ideas for the farm. And there were bad days, very bad days, where the pain was so overwhelming he could barely speak. Through it all, Amy and Karen maintained a fragile truce. They coordinated visits. They updated each other. They shared the burden. But then, something shifted. About 6 weeks into the treatment, Matt hit a wall. The pain was relentless. The confinement was chipping away at his spirit. The powerful medications fogged his brilliant mind. He couldn't think clearly. He couldn't plan. He was, in his own eyes, trapped. And for Matt Roloff, there is no fate worse than being trapped. It was during one of these dark nights, with Karen asleep in the chair next to him, that he made his decision. He later told a close friend that he looked around the sterile room, felt the tubes and wires connecting him to the machines, and he didn't see a path to life. He saw a prison. He saw the very essence of his independence being systematically dismantled. And the man who built a farm from nothing, who defied every expectation placed on him, decided he would not go out this way. He decided to stop. He informed his doctors the next morning. The medical team was appalled. They pleaded with him. They explained, in the clearest, most graphic terms, what would happen. That stopping mid-protocol wasn't just pausing, it was triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. His body, already weakened and relying on the treatment, would not be able to cope. It would be, in their words, medical suicide. When Karen found out, she collapsed. The strength she had so carefully curated for weeks evaporated in an instant. This wasn't just a setback, this was a rejection of the future they had planned, a dismissal of all the care and love she had poured into him. Her terror turned into a frantic, desperate campaign to change his mind. She brought in the children. Zach, Jeremy, Molly, Jacob, they all took turns, trying to reason with their father, to appeal to the fighter they all knew. But Matt was resolute. He had made up his mind. And then Karen called Amy. Imagine that phone call. The woman who replaced her, calling her in a state of sheer panic, because the man they both loved, in their own, complicated ways, was intent on self-destruction. Amy's reaction was different from Karen's. It wasn't just panic, it was a deep, resonant, and furious grief. She had spent over 30 years of her life fighting with Matt, fighting for Matt. She had endured the pain, the surgeries, the struggles, to build a life and a family. And to see him now, ready to throw it all away, for her, it felt like a betrayal of that entire shared history. It was as if he was saying that their past, the life they built together, wasn't worth fighting for anymore. She stormed into that hospital room. And the confrontation was epic. This wasn't a televised argument for the cameras. This was raw, unfiltered, and real. Amy, standing by his bed, didn't plead. She accused. She called him selfish. She told him he was so obsessed with controlling his own narrative, with being the great man who went out on his own terms, that he was blind to the carnage he was leaving behind. She brought up their children. She brought up their grandchildren. She asked him how he could be so willing to abandon them for the sake of his pride. Matt, weak but defiant, fired back. He told her she didn't understand. He said she never truly understood the pressure he was under, the weight of being the provider, the star, the patriarch. He threw their past in her face, accusing her of always trying to hold him back, to play it safe. He said this was his life, and his choice. And Karen? Karen was caught in the middle, watching the two most important people in her life, her fiancé and his ex-wife, tear each other apart over the man lying in the bed between them. Her attempts to mediate, to calm the waters, were shouted down by both of them. In that moment, she was rendered invisible, a spectator to a decades-old war that had just found a new, and more devastating, battlefield. Amy finally left the room, tears of rage and heartbreak streaming down her face. The truce was not just broken, it was annihilated. 2 days later, exactly as the doctors predicted, Matt's body began to fail. It was swift and brutal. He was rushed back to the hospital, this time in critical condition. The choice he had made had now become a full-blown medical crisis. The very catastrophe they had all been warned about was now unfolding. And this is where we are now. This is the present moment. Matt is in the ICU. His condition is stable, but grave. The doctors are fighting a new battle, not to cure him, but simply to manage the cascading failures his decision set in motion. And the two women? They are shattered. But their grief is manifesting in profoundly different, and opposing, ways. Karen is stationed at the hospital. She barely leaves. She is his